Budget 2019. We're in the Victoria Conference Center. I am the editor-in-chief of the Orca, Maclean K, and I am joined by
Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association, the mighty ICBA.
And we have just been, I've been here since 8 a.m.
So have I.
And that's true. Well, we've been divided.
We've been divided.
So
we should try to keep us apart.
That's true. See, the media sit up front here, and there's a divider that goes in between the halves of the room, and the stakeholders are all in the back for most of the day, except for those brief periods in which we're allowed to interact. So I actually haven't. This is more or less the first time I've seen you all day.
Yes, except for our clandestine accidental meeting in the bathroom, which is the flaw in the budget lockup system that I've never been able to quite exploit.
That's true.
I got to get Baldrey or Palmer to go to the bathroom at a precise time so I can go in there and chat with them.
And spin them in the bathroom.
Spin them.
Why not? Okay. So, first impressions, what do you think?
Well, this was the budget of re-announcing and pre-announcing, I think. We had a bunch of... at first, I was a little worried because I'm reading through the news. I was like, oh, my God, they did all this last year, didn't they? Yeah, they did, and they were re-announcing it. And then they pre-announced a big tax credit for what they're calling middle-class families. We can debate what the definition of middle class is, but families with children. But it doesn't take effect till October 2020. So if you're a spring or fall election truther like Maclean, I know you are, this might be ammunition for that side.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I was a spring or fall election truther, but they didn't have a big splash in this budget. It wasn't, they seemed to be around here in the media room, they were trading around words like stand pat, cautious, conservative.
Steady as she goes.
Well, yeah. And so they don't have that one sort of big ticket retail consumer item where we could say we're the NDP and we're doing this for you.
Yeah. It's
all very much, as you say, a re-announcement of things we've done before and sort of steady as she goes.
Yeah, I think they wanted that child opportunity benefit, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Don't quiz me on that. But opportunity, interesting, a word that Andrew Wilkinson was planning to run on in the next election. They want this child opportunity benefit maybe to be that centerpiece, but because this doesn't come through until October 2020, the media really, there wasn't a single question about it.
No, and it was kind of surprising actually, in that actually that's the thing we should mention is that the finance minister holds a Q&A with media afterwards, and I think for the first time ever, I was told it wrapped up in half the amount of time they allocated for it.
Yeah, they ran out of questioners,
which is kind of astonishing. We're back. Government internet. What can you say?
Our tax dollars at work. No, there is a lot of people here filing stories. I blame NL Radio and Shane Woodford over here filing stories and eating up our bandwidth.
Shane,
damn you for being so likable.
We were talking about housing starts.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about housing starts.
Yes.
Anyway, no matter what the cause is, and I did ask the NDP staff from the ministry, why off the record, not for attribution, and it was their response was
why not?
Their response was simply that the last few years have been abnormally high.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of reverting to the mean historical averages. I spoke to Anne McMillan at BDI, and her response was a better version of no.
Well, the historic mean average they're using is an average of housing starts since 1990.
Yeah.
Not, the last 10 years, not since, say, the economic downturn of 2008, which might be a more reasonable kind of business cycle. No, 1990. We are literally going back to the 90s. This is the complaint about these guys. It is hard to really take that too seriously. So much has changed. Even go to 2001. The historic average was definitely
province has grown, and the demand for housing has grown almost exponentially.
Absolutely. So, what's every article about? It's about the housing affordability, and guess what? You're chasing consumer confidence away. So, housing starts are a big issue. Shockingly, though, and this is a concern on the money side, they still predict that property transfer tax will remain at $1.9 billion a year every year for 3 years. It's exactly even. Now, that's never happened in the history of BC that you've had this number be the same. 2 years in a row, let alone 3 years.
It almost looked like a line error, like somebody forgot to copy and stop copying and pasting. But
it did, but I think they just don't know what the heck their policies are doing, so they don't know what to put in there.
It's just a shot in the dark.
Which is a little bit scary when you're talking about a budget surplus of only $250 million, $270 million.
Let's talk about budget surpluses for a second, because this is a balanced budget. However. And another however on top of it, they have eliminated the operating debt, which is a commendable achievement and full credit to them. But the overall debt is going up. And it's going up by quite a bit, actually. Yeah,
it's going up by about $400 million a month, which is an amount that we didn't even see during the BC Liberal time. And look, the BC Liberals were no debt hawks, and this operating debt thing was started by Mike DeYoung, finished off by Carol James, but really is a little bit of fooling around with the books. The capital debt has continued to grow.
Yeah.
They're adding $14 billion over 3 years, which is a staggering amount when you consider they believe the economy is in good shape. Like, it's one thing to spend that kind of money, a stimulus or whatever, and we can debate that. That's generally what governments do.
Yeah.
But to do it during the good times, like,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a little bit worrisome. And the debt to GDP ratio, which is what they always fell back on. Oh, well, it's the same. It's going up by 1.5 points as well. So,
yeah.
And the debt to revenue is also going to hit close to 100% here soon.
So what's going on there? Why?
I think they've spent all their operating money, right? Like they raised all those taxes last year. I think they realized that they could not raise more taxes this year. So they're borrowing money in order to build all these big promises. And we've got, Adrian Dix running around the province on a spending spree, remedying all these things that the BC Liberals neglected for 16 years. Well, the reason they were neglected was they were bloody expensive, and there's only so much borrowing you can do. And this, that borrowing envelope doesn't include a Massey tunnel replacement, does not include Surrey SkyTrain, does not include a dollar for Highway 1 expansion east of Langley. 3 big projects, which I think most people would argue are definitely needed.
UBC SkyTrain, as someone on the Daniel Fontaine argued in the Orca as well. You may not agree that it's needed, but
Arbutus,
something that is
Arbutus SkyTrain gets $1.1 billion over 3 years.
Yeah.
Surrey gets 0, which is interesting. Now, Ministry of Transportation, off the record to us, or off the record to me, said, well, look, it's all going in a pool of money, and we're funding this, but they'll own that. I don't know. The other thing is, for us, construction costs are being driven up artificially here because of these project labor agreements. If you didn't have it, if you weren't spending 20 to 30% more on the Patello Bridge than you needed to, than you were on the Kamloops expansion east to the Alberta border of Highway 1, or on Arbutus Subway, you'd have enough money for a down payment on things like Massey and Highway 1 to Langley. But the NDP have chosen to kind of feather the beds of their union buddies rather than doing more of the construction projects. That's my editorial comment. This view does not reflect necessarily Maclean's view of.
Kind of does. Anything else from the budget today that hit you in the face?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk casinos.
Yes. Let's talk casinos.
So we live in an era. God bless him, the crusading Attorney General, David Eby, tall guy, runs around the legislature. You know him.
He's extremely
Sometimes
tall.
Wears Batman outfits because he's such a crusader for justice. He's out there killing money launderers and fighting money laundering, and he's doing all the good stuff.
He is very tall.
The amazing thing about this is, you would think now that money laundering is out of casinos, there's no more duffel bags of $100 bills. There's no more, all that. It's all been solved because David Eby is our crusading Attorney General. You'd think that revenue from casinos would go down. Wrong. Revenue from casinos is up $60 million.
So why is that? What's even
because there wasn't that much money laundering going on, because he's totally blown us out of proportion in order to change political diatribes against the BC Liberals. Anytime the Liberals get any traction, there's another money laundering story from David Eby. Gives me the EBGBs. I'll say it live. It's a great hashtag. Use it, people. It just, like, you're doing the math going, like, if there's this $1 billion or $100 million of money laundering going on, where the heck is it, and how are casinos making more money next year than this year?
And that is, that's the bottom line for now for the budget, I guess, is that at least
we got to talk the dumpster fire too.
That's right. Yes. Well, I meant for the numbers for the casinos. It's more money. That's good. Keep gambling.
Yeah. Keep gambling.
Now the dumpster fire.
Know your limit. Play within it. The dumpster fire.
Some conflicting opinions there.
Yes. So some fascinating numbers on ICBC and BC Hydro. So essentially, they predict a 1 year, $1 billion turnaround for each of those corporations. So essentially, they lost, and ICBC lost $1.15 billion last year, or this year. They expect that to basically break even, to only lose 50 schmil next year. That's a $1 billion turnaround for that corporation. And I gotta say, that is
optimistic.
Like, I'm not sure Mitt Romney would promise that. Bain Financial. I'm not sure. We'd see a lot of that.
Binders full of drivers.
Wow. Rate increases are coming. Forget winter. Rate increases are coming. They're coming in a big way because that is a tough target to meet. So we have that. BC Hydro, same thing. Going from about a $400 million a year deficit to a $700 million a year profit. Again, another $1 billion turnaround in 1 year. Where's that coming from? Like, you're still building sites. Yeah, you've paid down some deferral accounts. There's some interest savings there. It's coming from ratepayers. There's going to be huge rate hikes in order to make that target work. If the CEOs of these companies actually do turn it around to $1 billion, tune of $1 billion in 1 year,
can we confer knighthoods?
They can write their own ticket at any Fortune 500 company in this great world, because there'll be like miracle workers walking on water. So
the other thing I wanted to mention on ICBC is that that wasn't talked a lot about in the budget, but according to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, now the word insolvent may not apply because it's a crown corporation, right, and it's backed up by government. So like really it's a little different than a private company. But if it were
a real insurance corp.
Yes, exactly. Apparently it's 268 or 270 million. Their liabilities exceed all of their assets. And that includes, when I say all their assets, I'm talking offices, buildings, like actual things they'd have to sell, the chairs that they're sitting on,
the computer terminal that they're entering the auto plan on,
everything all in. They're still 270 million in the hole. And so in other words, if all the claims in BC came due this year, which hopefully they do not, they can't pay them.
Yeah. Holy insolvency Batman.
Yeah.
And again, it's why I treat that $1 billion turnaround with such skepticism. Look, I hope so. Listen, I'd love to have.
Nobody's rooting for failure.
No, exactly. And these are things that cost us money individually, and then as companies and businesses, and anywhere you go. It seems really unlikely. Like this thing is still tracking in the wrong direction. Carol James, there are fewer accidents this year than last year. Well, we just
had another blizzard.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't been outside, but we hear it's snowing in the Lower Mainland, maybe. So it's not great. There's something else on that file. Go ahead. It'll come back to me.
Well, I stall for time on Jordan's behalf.
Let me check my fantastic notes here.
It was, as I say, I think the key themes here is that, like we talked about off the top, is that a lot of people are looking for clues of an early election.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and I'm not saying it's not, there aren't a lot of obvious signs. This is not a big splash budget. It's very much a stay the course budget. There are no new big programs, with the exception of the childhood tax credit, which expands, I think, from you have to be 6 now they can go all the way till 18, which is probably their big ticket.
So basically, it only works for people who are couples who are making less than $115,000 a year
together.
So if you were 2 married teachers, you're probably making more than that.
Oh, well, certainly.
You are not middle class anymore. Yeah. You are now upper class, apparently. You would not be receiving that credit. If you're a cop married to a nurse, you would not receive that. So like these jobs that we consider middle class, like $115,000, we're like, oh, that's a lot of money, because we're thinking from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But, that's 2 less than $60,000 a year jobs. The average annual income for a person is about $55,000 in BC. So
slightly above average.
Right.
You don't qualify for this.
So the middle class, most people think they are middle class unless, they're rich 1%ers like Keith Baldrey. But, the rest of it, yes, they are. He said, the rest of us, we're all like, oh, we're one middle class.
That's
but,
true.
Gosh, if there's 2 of you working, you probably exceed that limit already. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets spun out a little bit.
Well, it's interesting to watch the NDP take that lesson from Ottawa, which is that their stated mission is to defect and pretend the middle class, but they're very elastic in how they define it. And this is actually probably your perfect example of a thing that is explicitly for the middle class, but
what's the middle class?
Look at the numbers, and
it's like last year when they redefined small business to actually mean micro businesses, 1 or 2 employees, small business being 3 or 4 or more. That's no longer, that's a big business now. The other thing that we got to talk about is with operating debt being paid off, that releases British Columbia from a piece of legislation that banned what's called supplementary spending, so supplementary debates. In the past 10 years, because we had operating debt, basically the budget was it. If it wasn't in the budget, you couldn't spend it. Now you could reallocate some things, and there was some ways around that, but generally, if it wasn't in the budget, you could not spend it even at the end of the year. The problem is now that that's gone, now that the operating debt is gone, the legislation evaporates. And now we can go back to having what's called supplementary estimates. And my understanding is what this means is that any time throughout the year, the government can have hearings and votes and spend more money that isn't allocated in the budget. This is slush fund politics. So forget the slush on the roads. We're now back to slush fund politics in Victoria. And the NDP have, carved out, about $1 billion worth of contingencies and surplus. There's other, if things go well and, more income taxes come back from the federal government or something, there's that money. There's unallocated money in Clean BC. They can use these supplementary estimates to still announce programs and spend it throughout the year. So yeah, if you're a fan of slush, you're going to see a lot of it slopping around the Capitol in the next few.
Well, that might put a lie to my my no early election promise if they can afford to spend some money in the summer or
Right.
are legally allowed to.
Yeah, exactly. The other funny thing comes courtesy of Vaughn Palmer, who dug through the legislature estimates and found a line item for $2 million for special equipment at the legislature, which
I did see that.
We presume, I presume, will be either to refurbish the jail for Linda Reid to live out her days in Alan Mullen's little world, or for Alan Mullen to buy a taser and handcuffs to take other Frog March other poor employees out.
Definitely some surveillance equipment.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable that the legislature in this climate is getting a single dime more money. Especially considering all the waste that we're about to save on, because think of all the trips that we're going to save money on.
Well, even if you give them the benefit of the doubt, what but even if you did, for argument's sake,
what special equipment for $2 million?
Yeah, well, actually,
a Segway for the speaker. A bulletproof vest for Alan Mullen. He's worried Gary Lenz may come back. He had a gun at one time.
They have those things. That's what I mean. Is they've already spent all this money.
Do they have a snowblower?
They
could have used it.
They do have a snowblower.
They have a snowblower and a wood chipper.
Yeah, it's a wood splitter.
Wood splitter, pardon me. Maybe a chipper just after you split the wood.
It's hard to see where you're going to spend $2 million.
I'm telling you, refurbishing the jail so the MLAs can live out their days.
There is a jail in the legislature, by the way.
Exactly.
It's never been used apparently. Well, it's being used currently for storage. I'm serious.
Yeah, that's true.
It's in the basement. I used to walk by it every day, but it's you can be put there.
Yeah. So there you go. I demand that's where that money be spent. No, you're right. $2 million. And it's not like it's for Hansard or anything like that. Hansard has its own light item. So you can bet that Vaughn Palmer, once the dust settles here, will be wandering over to the speaker's office.
He's digging that up right now.
Yeah, that's why he's better than us. We're here, goofing around on Facebook, and he's freaking Vaughn Palmer.
We're doing everything we can to get Keith.
That's right. That's right. Look at him.
Is.
Look at him living the dream. So last kind of thoughts here. It's kind of funny budget lockup because there's a big room and there's a wall that separates the media from the stakeholders, and the stakeholders kind of break down. So like on the left side of the room are all the unions, the NDP or friendly groups, and on the right side of the room are all the business groups, and it's like
a junior high dance.
It's like we make the money and they spend the money, and it's hilarious. For 16 years. Well, I mean, I've been, this is my 10th budget. So for, I think 8 of those budgets, you'd come in and, the business council guys would be bouncing up and down. What tax cuts we're getting this year? And, we'd be sitting there, and, the poor, generation squeeze guy would come in and, another just, and now it's completely changed. It's like the budget guys are like, what fresh hell is being foisted upon us today?
By the way, it's not like you have to sit next to the Broadbent Institute, or that they have to sit next to you, depending on your perspective.
No, exactly.
They do a better job they segregate things.
It just happens naturally. It's like a junior high dance. You're exactly right. And we just kind of self-organize into the proper factions. And I did see Bill Thielman.
He sat next to me
in the media lockup, which
Bill's writing for the Tyee. It's legit.
Yeah, well, I write for the Orca, so next year I'm going to try to get into the media lockup, see if I can do that.
Well, I mean, I was happy to see Bill, and
you'd rather sit with Bill than me? That hurts. That hurts. And then the other thing is like the political. This is tradition where they don't allow media to talk to stakeholders until after the finance minister has both given her speech, questions from the media.
That's right.
And I guess it's to stop. I don't know. It gets chaotic.
So we're not spun.
Yeah, it gets chaotic, I guess. But you could bring it to attention.
It's a lot. I mean, you're given a stack of documents, and I'm not exaggerating. Yeah, it's a lot of numbers, and sometimes they contradict each other, and so it's a lot to process. Yeah. And so I can see the thinking that if we were also to be spun, that it might produce some confusion. But at the same time, I mean,
you ask questions that are
the
of
amount
value.
well, and it's sometimes it's just you can't see everything. You absolutely can't. There's just too much in there unless you're Vaughn and you know what you're looking for and where. For a novice like myself, it's a lot to take in.
Look, and some outlets, have multiple people here. So one's on the housing file, one's on the affordability file, one's on the how will this affect everyday people file, which is like the classic TV story on these things. Whereas here for me being a stakeholder, I was looking first and foremost at construction, small housing starts, economic development. Is there anything on competitiveness? Nothing on competitiveness.
No, that's what Jock Finlayson told me as well.
Yeah, which is really concerning. It makes you wonder if she's not taking seriously the warning signs that are starting to pop up on the dashboard. At some point the economy's going to turn. It's been 10 good years. Like, we should be getting ready for it, and we're not.
Last question, not entirely serious. Have the NDP already started writing their budget 2020 perfect vision puns for next year?
Yeah, I hope so. 2020, a vision for the future.
I would have been all over that.
Yes. But we want 2520, the far-sighted vision. That's what I want. I don't want any of this,
settle for 20.
Perfect. I want 2520 far-sighted vision. No, like we didn't talk about clean BC either.
No, we should have actually.
I did the math. Mm-hmm. So on the electric car, subsidy, for lack of a better term, if you break it down, you could do a $5,000 subsidy on about 9,000 vehicles. That is not enough to turn over a 1 million car fleet that we have in British Columbia. So they're grossly underspending there. They have some very ambitious greenhouse gas emission target cuts. I don't see how they're going to get there. And we see, frankly, Jeff Megg's thumbprints on a bit of it, where the chief of staff to the NDP premier, who used to be chief of staff or used to be a councillor,
and de facto chief of staff to Gregor.
With this bad mouthing natural gas, trying to get people off natural gas and onto electricity. First of all, far more expensive to buy electricity for the average family, so that erodes affordability. Second of all, what the hell is wrong with natural gas? we spent a long time in this province promoting it.
Well, and when you're heating your home in Prince George, it's just
geothermal is going to be great. But if it's minus 30, an electric vehicle is not practical. And if you're living in Williams Lake and you need to get to Prince George regularly, or vice, that doesn't really lend itself to the range. And then there's the big diesel trucks, which is the number one. The car fleet are emitters, but it's purely by volume that is emitting a lot. It's diesel trucks. It's the stuff going to the port. It's the stuff powering the economy. It's the snow plows. It's the dump trucks. There's no battery that can power those yet. So, we're basically screaming, yelling like we're going to have our own 2030 BC emission standards. We're such a small market. This isn't like California. If you watch The Price is Right, remember California emissions was always like what they would say about the new car. We don't have that clout in BC. We have 1 million cars. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. So these are the problems that, when good intentions face the rough market outcome, rough hand of the market always wins. There's going to be, if they legislate these targets into place, they'll never be met.
And on that depressing note, it's been fun.
Yes.
Expect to see pieces from both myself and Jordan up, if not right away, then later today on the Orca. And there'll be a lot more reaction pieces as the week goes on.
I even did a flip chart video at facebook.com/theICBA.
Oh my goodness.
I broke out the old gimmick one more time. I gotta say, and Ian Black gave this budget a B- for the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. Come on, Ian.
He's playing ball. He's being nice.
Oh, I don't know. Definitely sometimes feel like I'm on the militant wing of the movement over there. And in fact, there was a couple times where guys would come over and be like, "Hey, you should say this because I'm too scared to." So that's my stakeholder report, sir.
Logged and noted. As always, I am Maclean K from the Orca.
Jordan Bateman, ICBA.
And thanks very much for watching.
Take care.